Disclaimer: this story explores mature emotional themes including manipulation, trust, and personal boundaries. It is intended for a mature audience and does not contain explicit material. Viewer discretion is advised. I never expected the assignment to change my life. That Monday morning, the air inside room 204 felt heavier than usual. Maybe it was the way sunlight refused to spill in through the blinds, casting long shadows across the rows of desks. Or maybe it was her, Ms. Reyna, standing at the front of the classroom, poised as always, yet unreadable behind those silver-rimmed glasses. She wasn't just our communications instructor, she was the kind of woman who spoke like every word had a secret. Commanding, sharp, and always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. We were adults, college seniors, prepping for our final oral assessment in advanced persuasion. The syllabus said this project would challenge our emotional intelligence, but none of us realized what that actually meant, until she paired me with Ayan. Ayan and I had spoken maybe twice in the entire semester. He was quiet, serious, tall, with a constantly furrowed brow like he was carrying the weight of something no one else could see. I always assumed he preferred it that way, silent and alone. And honestly, I was fine keeping our worlds separate. I wasn't looking to unlock someone else's storm. But then Ms. Reyna gave the instruction that flipped everything upside down. For this final assignment, she said, pacing slowly between our desks, you won't be writing essays or giving speeches. You'll be engaging in emotional mirroring exercises, with a partner. Real-time vulnerability. Structured intimacy. You will dig deeper than you ever have, and yes, your grade depends on how far you're willing to go. There was a stunned silence. Then she looked right at me. Lana, you're with Ayan. I blinked. Wait, him? Ayan didn't react. He just gave a slow nod, eyes locked on the grain of his desk like it told a story more interesting than anything around him. The rest of the class buzzed with nervous laughter, awkward tension filling the room as partners were matched. But all I could think about was the fact that I'd have to spend hours revealing things I barely admitted to myself, to a guy I barely knew. Later that week, we sat across from each other in an empty rehearsal room. Ms. Reyna had instructed us to begin with the unspoken truths exercise, 10 minutes of uninterrupted eye contact, followed by confessions that started with "I never told anyone this, but I thought it would be easy. Or at least manageable." But the longer I looked into his eyes, those dark, haunted eyes, the more everything inside me started to shake. Then he spoke first. "I never told anyone this," he said slowly, "but I watched someone die, and I couldn't do anything." The air left the room. I felt it in my stomach, the drop. That feeling like you've stepped off a ledge before your brain catches up. I didn't know what to say. And that silence between us? It wasn't just awkward. It was loaded. Like we had both crossed an invisible line neither of us knew was even there. What happened next changed everything. Because Ms. Reyna wasn't just watching us, she was testing something. Something personal. Something planned. The silence after Ayan's confession lingered like smoke in a sealed room, thick, choking, impossible to ignore. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. What could I say to that? I wasn't prepared for the intensity. Not from him. Ayan had always felt like a background character in my college life, quiet, elusive, distant. He didn't show up to parties, didn't speak unless spoken to, and never raised his hand in class. I used to think he was just uninterested. Now, sitting across from him, I realized he was guarded. On purpose. Like every wall he built had a reason. And maybe now, piece by piece, they were starting to crack. I leaned back slightly, heartbeat in my throat. "Who was it?" I asked, before I could stop myself. He looked up, finally. His gaze didn't burn, it pulled. Like it wanted me to see something beneath the surface that even he hadn't fully faced. My older brother, he said. Car crash. I was there. I should have pulled him out sooner. There was no dramatics in his voice, just this raw, heavy honesty that left no room for judgment. That was the assignment, after all. Structured intimacy. Forced emotional honesty. But Ms. Reyna knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't just an exercise. It was exposure. And I was starting to feel it, too. Because for the first time in years, I wanted to say something real back. To match his pain with my own. But the words caught in my throat. Instead, I looked at the clock. Only 4 minutes had passed. 6 more to go. A lifetime. The next session wasn't much easier. Ms. Reyna added a twist. We had to write letters to each other. Letters we weren't supposed to read aloud until the final evaluation. We were told to go deep, to share something we'd never dare say out loud. Privately, silently, truthfully. It was a strange kind of vulnerability, writing to someone you barely knew, yet already felt exposed around. I stayed up that night, staring at the blank page. Thinking about my mother's hospital room. The beep of monitors. The moment I told her I'd come back, and didn't. Maybe Ayan and I weren't so different after all. By the third meeting, we weren't just completing tasks. We were reading each other, tiny glances, the pauses between words, the way our body language shifted when something hit too close. I started noticing things, how he clenched his jaw when he was about to lie, how he avoided eye contact when the truth came too easily. But what disturbed me most wasn't him. It was her. Ms. Reyna. She kept asking questions that had nothing to do with persuasion techniques. Questions about family dynamics. Personal triggers. Past relationships. She called it psychological layering. I called it something else entirely. Why did it feel like she wasn't just teaching, but watching? And what exactly was this assignment preparing us for? The next task she gave was chilling in its simplicity, trust fall, verbal addition. One of you tells a secret that could damage the other's perception of you. The other listens, without speaking. My palms went cold. Because I knew what I had to say next. And I wasn't sure if Ayan would ever look at me the same again. By the time our 4th session came around, I wasn't sure where the assignment ended and real life began. I had rehearsed my verbal trust fall over and over in my head. The secret I was about to share wasn't just personal, it was the kind of truth that shifts how someone sees you. And maybe that was the point. But when I looked at Ayan sitting across from me, arms folded, jaw tense, eyes braced for impact, I hesitated. What if I shattered whatever strange, fragile connection we'd built? Before I could speak, Ms. Reyna stepped in again. Before we begin, she said, today's session will be recorded, for peer review. My stomach dropped. We hadn't been recorded before. And I didn't sign up for my trauma to be observed. Ayan shot her a look, one eyebrow raised. He didn't like it either. Still, we followed her lead. I took a breath and said it, I lied to someone I loved, and it destroyed everything. I watched him fall apart, and I let him think it was his fault. Ayan didn't flinch. But something in his eyes darkened, recognition? Judgment? I couldn't tell. He remained silent, as instructed. No reaction. Just the sound of the ceiling fan clicking softly above us and the red blinking light of the camera recording every micro-expression. When the timer beeped, I exhaled like I'd just surfaced from underwater. Ayan looked at me for a long time, then finally said, I know what that kind of silence feels like. But we never got to unpack it. Not then. Because as we gathered our things, I noticed Ms. Reyna had left her notebook on the desk. And sticking out from the top of the folder was a sheet labeled, Case Study Pair Number 5, Psychological Response Triggers, Lana/Ion. We weren't just students. We were subjects. I couldn't sleep that night. The words Case Study Pair Number 5 burned into my mind. It wasn't just an assignment anymore. Ms. Reyna had been studying us. Measuring our reactions. Pushing buttons we didn't even know we had. The next day, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. I never promised this course would be safe, she said calmly, arms crossed, voice like glass, smooth but capable of cutting. I promised it would change you. My voice shook. You're using our trauma for some twisted experiment. She tilted her head. I'm showing you who you really are when the mask drops. I left her office furious, and more confused than ever. But things with Ion were changing, too. That afternoon, he found me in the courtyard, the same notebook I'd seen sticking out of Ms. Reyna's folder now clutched in his hand. His knuckles were white around the spiral binding. You read it too, I said. He nodded. She documented everything. The things I said about my brother. What you said about him. I looked away. It felt like we'd been cracked open without consent. She wrote that I mirror deflection through controlled silence. That I use grief as a social shield, Ion said, voice flat. She's not teaching us. She's dissecting us. What are we supposed to do? I asked. He looked at me then, really looked. For the first time, I saw something in him that scared me. Resolve. She wants honesty? Let's give it to her. All of it. The final session was scheduled for tomorrow. One last exercise. No script. No safety net. Just raw, unrehearsed truth, in front of the whole class. A public performance of private pain. I wasn't ready. But Ion was. And something in his eyes told me, he wasn't planning to follow the rules. The morning of the final session, the college felt colder than usual. Maybe it was the wind slicing between the old brick buildings or the way people whispered just a little too quietly in the hallways. Maybe it was me. I hadn't spoken to Ion since yesterday's confrontation in the courtyard. He'd vanished after his final words, she wants honesty? Let's give it to her. I wasn't sure if I should be scared or inspired by the way he said it. Maybe both. The class gathered in room 204, just like always. But everything felt different. Ms. Reyna stood at the front, clipboard in hand, perfectly composed in her usual black blazer and minimalist jewelry. She greeted us with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Today's final evaluation is open format, she announced. Each pair will take the floor and engage in their final interpersonal exchange. You may use notes, props, anything you feel helps convey truth. A few nervous laughs floated around the room. No one volunteered to go first. Then Ion stood. I'll go. And to my horror, he gestured at me. Everyone turned. I felt every eye like a spotlight. I didn't move. Not until Ms. Reyna gave a single, subtle nod. A signal. I joined him at the front. Ion didn't wait for permission. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his back pocket, the letter. The one I had written to him earlier in the assignment. The one I was told he hadn't read yet. I read it, he said quietly, addressing the class. I know I wasn't supposed to. But I did. I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. I wasn't the only one keeping secrets, he continued. Lana's letter, It wasn't about regret. It was about a decision. Something she chose to do. Something she never told the person involved. He turned to me now. You wrote that you let someone believe a lie, that you let them spiral because the truth would have made you the villain. I wanted to disappear. A few gasps echoed through the room. Ms. Reyna stepped forward. Ayan, if this wasn't discussed in your private session, no, he said, eyes locked on her now. We're not doing your version of truth anymore. We're doing the real thing. And then, he pulled out another piece of paper. A printout. From her folder. She's been using us for something else entirely, he said. These sessions? They weren't just for educational purposes. They're part of a private research initiative. Her own project. Not approved by the department. He handed the paper to a student near the front. They read it aloud. Subject Response Analysis, Emotional Trigger Conditioning, Reyna S. Case Study 5. Silence. She's experimenting with psychological manipulation techniques, Ayan said. We're not students to her. We're data points. Ms. Reyna's expression didn't change. Not even slightly. You're making assumptions based on partial information, she said smoothly. Every educator tests boundaries. That's how growth works. No, I said finally, finding my voice. You pushed trauma to the surface and sat back to watch us bleed. You let us believe we were in control. Ayan looked at me. She knew what you were hiding. She put us together because of it. And then came the twist no one saw coming. She knows your ex, Ayan said. The one from your letter. The guy you lied to. The one you let take the fall. I blinked. What are you talking about? She taught him. 2 years ago. In this same program. Same advanced persuasion project. Same exercises. Same manipulation. He was subject number 3. My breath caught. No, she knew who you were the moment you walked in this room. She paired us intentionally. Because she wanted to see if history would repeat itself. I turned to Ms. Reyna. You knew? She finally spoke, and this time, the mask slipped. I knew everything. I always do. The room broke into chaos. Some students were shouting. Others grabbing their bags. Phones came out. Someone was already recording. But I couldn't move. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even scared anymore. I felt exposed, like every secret I had carefully buried had been excavated, catalogued, and used as part of some sick psychological performance. Ayan stepped closer to me. Quietly, he said, this was never about healing, Lana. It was about breaking us down so she could document how we rebuild. Ms. Reyna's voice rang out, calm as ever. You've all proven my theory right. Emotional honesty requires pressure. Without it, people don't grow. They protect. They lie. I looked at Ayan. You said we should give her honesty. All of it. He nodded. We're not done yet. And before I could stop him, he walked to the center of the room and turned the camera around, facing her. You want a final exercise? He said. Then answer this on tape, why did you need us? For the first time, Ms. Reyna hesitated. Just a flicker. A crack in her perfect posture. Then, she smiled. And said the words I'll never forget. Because you remind me of who I used to be, before someone lied to me. The room had dissolved into tension. Phone still recording. Chairs half pushed back. Eyes bouncing between Ayan, Ms. Reyna, and me, like we were all part of a show that had finally gone off script. But then, something shifted. Ayan stepped down from the front of the class. Not in retreat, but in defiance. He walked toward me slowly, handing me the letter I had written. "I don't want to be part of someone else's case study," he said softly, "but I also don't want to walk away from this, from you." His voice shook, just slightly. It was the first time I saw the guarded, closed-off version of him completely stripped away. "I read what you wrote. And I saw someone who made a mistake. But I also saw someone who stayed quiet because she thought it would hurt less. For everyone." The class had gone still. "I'm not your ex," he added. "But maybe I understand him better now." Tears welled in my eyes. Not because I was ashamed. Not anymore. But because for the first time I felt seen, not studied. Ms. Reyna opened her mouth, maybe to reclaim control. But the dean entered just then, clipboard in hand, eyes already scanning the room. "We need to speak," he said to her. "Now." And just like that, her reign ended. The room exhaled. I turned to Ayan, unsure what this meant for us. But he just smiled, and said, "Let's write our own ending." It's been 6 months since that unforgettable day. Ms. Reyna's experiment was officially shut down by the department. After the dean's investigation, it turned out Ayan was right, her advanced persuasion curriculum wasn't approved. She resigned before the review board could act. I haven't seen her since. And honestly, I don't need to. As for Ayan and me, we kept talking after that day. At first, it was awkward, full of guarded pauses and cautious honesty. But over time, those walls came down. We weren't paired by fate, we were paired by manipulation. But somehow, what grew between us after the damage was real. We never tried to be perfect. Instead, we tried to be honest. And that's the point, isn't it? The most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves, to stay safe, to stay in control. Ms. Reyna wanted to expose those lies, but she forgot something vital. Healing doesn't come from being broken, it comes from being believed. Ayan believed in me, even when I didn't. I'll never forget what that meant. And maybe that's what this story was really about, not the manipulation, or the secrets, or the assignments, but the way connection can survive the fallout of truth.